Good morning, and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you've made the connection and are with us today. I'm Laurie Fitz, your host, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that challenge us to see ourselves, our community, and the world around us in ways that get us thinking, imagining, tapping into our sense of the importance of connections, and perhaps inspired or challenged to do just a bit more because we made the connection. And thank you for joining me on this Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. To this day, I Have a Dream speech fills our hearts with aspirations and guides us to continue to build a more just and equitable world. When I was a little girl living in D.C., what I remember most about the March on Washington in August of 1963 were all the churches that made sandwiches and meals for the marchers. I remember being with my mom and helping her make those sandwiches in our Presbyterian church kitchen, and her telling me that was an important way for us to serve the community, and it was a privilege. I think it's then I began to think about breaking bread together as being part of creating community. In his last book, he wrote in 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. posed an important question I believe that is even more vital today. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? COVID has torn at the fabric of our community. We miss gathering. And one of our most beloved gathering places has been our restaurants, where we mark things that are so important to us: engagements, anniversaries, birthdays, reunions, first dates. Each table is a story that marks an occasion in a magical ambiance brought to us by the people who dream. Immigrants who come to the country and begin by opening a restaurant and sharing their culture with us. It's brought to us by chefs who have a dream about bringing something special to our community. They're brought to us by all those wonderful people who have the hospitality gene and contribute to building and sharing our community. Working in restaurants is both a service and part of a larger dream. COVID has kept us from going as frequently to the restaurants we love. Perhaps in the pre-COVID world, we all took it for granted, the privilege to gather in our beloved community. It has felt a bit chaotic and isolating during COVID. But as we get through this difficult time, we can choose community over chaos. And restaurants may offer the thread to pull our community fabric together. We can relook, re-embrace, reimagine our restaurant experience as the place of dreams. And in so doing, find the dreams that Martin Luther King Jr. encouraged us to find together. So our topic today, and the ideas we're exploring, revolve around how restaurants embrace the place of dreams and hopes for our future. And joining me from Washington, D.C. is Patricia Gill. She is the Director of Workforce Engagement at the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation. Welcome, Patricia, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Laurie, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. You have such a passion for the work that you do. You've worked in restaurants, as most of us have, and now you're supporting innovative programs for those entering and re-entering the workforce.
I am, and it's really exciting. As you said, I've worked in restaurants myself in college, like so many people did, and even in law school, and I've also worked in hotels, and I just always loved it, and they're just such a part of our community and our lives. I mean, everyone has a favorite restaurant, a favorite thing to order, a favorite memory of being someplace with their friends or family, and I think we often think of restaurants that way, but everybody who's there is working. It's a job. They're gaining skills, and they're moving up in their career. So while restaurants are a place of happiness and memories and gathering, they're also a place of skills and competency and people moving along a career pathway. And I'm a huge believer in work as empowerment. You know, you mentioned earlier about the ideas of equity and opportunity, and work is, for so many people, a place where they can feel powerful and they can show their skills and they can move up and they can support their families. So when you bring together my probably two favorite things, which is restaurants and hospitality, with workforce and opportunity, it's perfect. And so I feel so lucky to have a job as Director of Workforce Development for the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation, where those two things are coming together.
What I also really enjoy is learning about individuals' connections that brought them to where they are today. And I just love that teaching at a nursery school or nursery schools led you to going to Georgetown Law School and eventually to the work that you're doing now with workforce engagement. So tell us a little bit about that journey, which I think is just wonderful.
Sure. It's quite a journey. Yeah. Starting way back in high school, I always thought, I want to work with little kids. And so when I was in high school, I had a job working at a nursery school. And that nursery school happened to be in a community with a lot of barriers. And these kids were 4 and 5 years old, and they were talking about different family members they visited in jail. And at 4 and 5, they knew all about the procedures to visit jail. And they were talking about all those sort of things. And, I had never been to visit a jail. And I was like, wow, they, have so much knowledge, but in kind of a not the best area of knowledge, maybe, or a rough area. And then when I was in college and graduated from college, I went to teach nursery school, and this time I happened to be in an area that had a lot more opportunities, and those kids, same age, were learning how to work computers and learning dance and swimming, and their parents were maybe doctors or lawyers, and they were talking about being a doctor or a lawyer, or even things about how to operate a washing machine in their home, because they all had washers and dryers in their home, and it really just struck me and kind of hurt my heart that at 3 and 4 years old, these children were already having such different experiences and different opportunities and different kinds of knowledge. And I just thought, well, this is so unfair. And so I am going to go to law school so I can do some kind of educational law or family law or something that's really going to be sure that all kids at 3 and 4 have these same kinds of opportunities and access. And so then I was lucky enough to go to Georgetown University Law Center, which was a lot. I think I shared with you earlier that I pretty much read all day and all night and all weekend. And, law school is a lot. But I just really was interested in figuring out how do we change the laws or change the opportunities or change the access. And then when I was in law school, I ended up teaching at a high school. They had a program called Street Law where we were teaching high school students about their rights and about the law as far as everything from search and seizure to stop and frisk and all this. And I fell in love with really working with young adults. Like, this is where you're making so many decisions in your life about if you're going to go to college, if you're going to get married, if you're going to get a job. And I kind of changed from nursery school to a real interest in young adults and started doing stuff around youth development. After law school, I worked at the Duke Ellington School of the Arts, where there was all these wonderful young people with all this amazing talent, and they were trying to figure out where they wanted to go in their lives. And I was the assistant director of a mentoring program there, and it started to occur to me there that really where deciding who you are and what you can do and what your skills are is such an important part of your identity. And that feeling of mastery and future, like I'm good at something and there's something that I can do, is such an important part of your being and who you are. And whether that is being an artist, a singer, or whether that's being a scientist or being a chef, which is another kind of an artist, really, it's knowing that this is something that I can do, that I can contribute to my community, that I can help support my family. And I really saw with adolescents and people going into adulthood that was such an important part of their identity. I ended up, after Duke Ellington, going to Chicago and working in a community, an empowerment zone grant. It was a federal grant where they put a lot of resources into a community that was struggling. And part of that was a job training program. And again, I saw that for young people as they were graduating high school, getting to like have responsibility and have a job, and we had a wide variety. We had kids that worked in food service, that worked in different parts of a grocery store. We had kids that worked in a hospital, at a bank, being group leaders at a park. And in every case, the way they walked taller, and they were so proud because they had that clipboard because they were reading the group activities, or they knew how to operate the cutting machine at the deli at the grocery store, or they knew at the hospital they had their walkie-talkie and they were one of the orderlies that took the patients to their different parts of the hospital. They just were so proud, and it was so great to see each of them figure out what was their best thing. And actually, there was one young man, big guy, kind of tough looking, and he got placed in a job at the cafeteria of the hospital. And I thought he was going to be really disappointed, like, he's just going to be serving food or whatever. But he was like, oh, no, Miss Patricia, when you visit, make sure you visit on Thursday because that's when I make my lasagna. And I make a great lasagna. And just to see the pride of this big, tough guy, he's been a football player or whatever, and he was so proud of his lasagna and wanted me to be sure to visit on that day, which I did, and it was very good. It was just, again, to just see that pride. So that really got me kind of honed in on adolescence and workforce development. And since that time, I've done a lot of work with helping other people work with young people as they figure out their goals. And then as I got further into workforce development, thinking about different populations who, for various reasons, were struggling to get work, including those who were justice involved, those with disabilities. And in every case, it was that job, that vision of themselves doing something useful, that was sort of the beacon to keep them getting through whatever else they had to figure out, transportation, all the other things they had to figure out. It was getting to that job that kind of kept them going. And then finally, I was sort of lucky enough to have it all come together that there was this job at the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation doing workforce development. And it was kind of a coming together for me because in law school, I actually worked at a hotel. I worked at the Ritz-Carlton, and I loved it. And they offered me a management job, and I wanted to do it because I loved it so well, and I loved hotels, and I loved hospitality. But I said, I still need to be doing good and helping people. So the fact that now I can be here in hospitality, which I love, but also workforce development, we're helping other people, find opportunities and reach their dreams. It's just magical, and I feel so lucky. And every day that we see another person, get a job and move along the career pathway, it's a great day.
It's such a wonderful trajectory of both hope and commitment, and we're going to need to take a break, although I wish we did have to, but we do have to take a break to support our wonderful program here. But before we go, if you're wanting to learn more about the work that's being done on a website, you want to check that out, you can go to chooserestaurants.org, and then there's a drop-down menu of Discover Opportunities. And in our next segment, we'll focus on how restaurants are the builders of dreams, a community resource, ways that restaurant industry is a suitable place for first jobs, and a model for employment, development, and advancement. So stay with us, and we'll be right back just after a few short announcements. Good morning. Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. We're so glad you've joined the conversation today. Our topic and the ideas we're exploring revolves around restaurants and embracing them as the place of dreams and hopes for our future. Joining me from Washington, D.C. is Patricia Gill. She is the Director of Workforce Engagement at the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation. Welcome, Patricia, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And the work that you're doing with workforce engagement so help having your background be shared to put things in perspective of why this is so important to you personally as well. And as we go into the second segment, I'd love to have you share about the work that you're doing in collaboration. and what you're doing to support all of that good stuff. And start us off with the goals. And I know the first goal is to establish the restaurant industry as a suitable place for first jobs and as a model of employment, development, and advancement. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. I think as we talked about in the first segment, people think of restaurants as kind of a center of their community, a place they've gone for family celebrations or maybe even sadder times as well. But it's a place that you go, you get good food, you gather. But it is also a place of employment. It's a place where people are working. And I think many of us worked our first job at a restaurant, maybe as a server or busboy, dishwasher. But it is also a place of career development and skill. Yes, you may start off as a server, a dishwasher, but there are opportunities to move up into management, supervision. There are credentials you can get. And there's also skills that you develop that if you decide, hey, restaurants and hospitality are not for me, there are transferable skills that you develop, like customer service and teamwork, that are going to be great for any job. So, yes, we still definitely want to gather at restaurants and eat great food, but it also is the opportunity to get employment, get skills, and advance your life and that of your family.
What a lot of people don't know is that every state, and even more than every state, has a state restaurant association, and that the National Restaurant Association, as well as the National Restaurant Association Education Foundation, does partnership programs with state restaurant associations. And you also work with community-based organizations, and you really foster that whole collaboration of how do we all work together to support something. And tell me a little bit about that effort of your collaborative work.
Certainly. So what we do in several of our programs, several of our workforce development programs, is that we do work with the state restaurant associations. And I have to say, before I worked for the National Restaurant Association, I did not know about state restaurant associations. But yes, in every state, there is an organization that is working to support your community restaurants and your even your state and national restaurants. But yeah, in every state, there's a state restaurant association, and they're helping to engage people and advance people in restaurants and hospitality. And also in every community, there are organizations, we know them very well, whether they're a Boys and Girls Club or a faith-based organization that's working on the ground in that community to help people and to help families advance. And what we do is sort of help to bring together a collaboration of those existing groups. If there's community groups that are trying to help people build their dreams and advance and move their families along, and then we have these state restaurant associations that are looking for untapped talent and to help people connect and engage to restaurants and hotels, bringing those two existing bodies that are in every community together. It can really help to make a nice, smooth pathway for people that are looking for work or looking for opportunities into an industry that is incredibly welcoming. And that's the one thing I remember from working at restaurants, even in high school and college, was that everybody there was a team and you all kind of supported each other and helped each other out. And for a lot of people who maybe didn't have large families or supportive families or live with a family, coming to the restaurant or coming to a hotel, that is kind of your family. So connecting people who are looking for opportunities and organizations that want to give people opportunities with your state restaurant association and your restaurants and hotels and other food service organizations that are looking for great people that want to be part of the team. It's just this natural flow, and it's really nice to bring this collaboration together and create that smooth pathway in every community.
What I love is the idea of the intentional career pathway. I remember when I was first starting, and even going to college, I did a lot of working at restaurants and whatnot, but I didn't know what my career was going to be, even in college. You know, what does that mean, and what does an intentional pathway look like? And I love the fact that your program starts to have those kind of conversations with people that are eager, and your passion of working with young people ties it all together. So tell me a little bit about that, the providing the intentional career pathway and supporting people.
Oh, sure. I'm glad you asked about that. So as you mentioned, you yourself worked in a restaurant as a young person, or so many people work in restaurants or hotels or food service at some point in their lives. And I like to say, whether you come into restaurants and hospitality by choice or by chance, we want to really welcome you and help you to develop the skills and get the certifications you need to intentionally move up. And what's so great in restaurants and hospitality is there's what we call stackable credentials. So you can start off just getting restaurant ready, which is our competency-based program that identifies what it takes to have you be, and I'm making air quotes, you can't see them, restaurant ready. What competencies do you need to just start out? What academic competencies do you need? What personal skills do you need just to start out in the restaurant industry? And then we start to develop more professional skills, whether it's learning more about food service or food safety, getting your cert safe or food handler. And then we have pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship opportunities. A lot of people don't realize that. I think you think of apprenticeship with maybe construction or being an electrician or one of those sort of trades. But there actually is. We have a registered apprenticeship with the U.S. Department of Labor. There's an apprenticeship. There's actually 3 in hospitality. There's restaurant manager, there's line cook, and we have a brand new one, kitchen manager. So people can actually, in an intentional and organized way, get both the hands-on experience, what we call on-the-job training, as well as the various credentials and courses they need to move up. And that's really nice. I think you might fall into restaurants and you might happen to get lucky and bump into someone and learn this or learn that or move up. But when you have something like apprenticeship, you can intentionally move up and get exactly the training and experience that you need to move up. And within apprenticeship, you're going to be there anyway. It's the same time, but you're actually guaranteed at least one raise during that time. So for people who are thinking about how am I going to support myself and move up and take care of my family and my own responsibilities, it's nice to have something intentional like that really lays out how do you move up. Well, it really struck me, one of our participants, when we went on something called an industry skills tour, we toured one of our partner restaurants. He actually asked, how do you move up here? Is it political, or what's it based on? So to really have this intentional pathway that people can see very clearly, here's how I can move up and here's what I can do next, I think it's really important.
And you also create those national standards. So it's not, when you say political, it might be, one way to move up in one organization, maybe another in another. But by having the national standards and that assessment that folks can work towards, it creates a more level playing field, doesn't it? It gives you opportunities to get the skill set that no matter where you go, these are going to be recognized as important.
Exactly. That's what I really like. I mentioned our Restaurant Ready program, and that really identifies the 6 competency areas that you need to enter the restaurant and hospitality industry day one. And this was developed in conjunction with employers, asking them, what is it that you're looking for? And they said, we can teach, nice skills. We can teach our particular form of service. We can teach how to upsell our menu items. But there are things that when someone walks in day one, we hope that they will know and understand and be able to do. And so we were able to gel down what we heard from all the employers.
And with that, I'll do a radio cliffhanger for us and have you save those opportunities for our next segment. But folks, if you want to get a jump start on that, you can go to chooserestaurants.org. And there is a section called Discover Opportunities that you can drill down into. But stay with us because our friend Patricia is going to share with us about competencies that have been created and things that you may want to be sharing with friends and relatives about, there's career opportunities through the restaurant industry. And let's think about that in terms of how do we rebuild the future of what we want for our beloved community.
KPNF St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show. I'm Laurie Fitz, your host. So glad you've joined us today. We're talking about restaurants and how they are places of dreams, both for folks who want to go to a restaurant as well as career opportunities for those who want to work in restaurants. And I have a terrific person sharing about workforce engagement. She is the Director of Workforce Engagement for the National Restaurant Education Foundation. Patricia Gill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've been talking about your career path as well as the career path that you're supporting for others through partnering in communities. And in our last section, you really gave us more insight about what the program goals are in re-looking at how restaurants can be a place to get important skills that not only can help you in your restaurant career, but help you in other careers as well. You have some competencies that I left as a cliffhanger for our audience.
Ooh.
Yes. And I'd love to have you just go through the various competencies that you work to help support individuals really get a leg up for their intentional career planning.
Sure. So, as I said before the break, we really worked with employers to identify what is it that they are hoping when people come through the door day one that they will know or understand and be able to do. And what I like is we were able to gel it down to 6 areas. And a lot of these areas are transferable skills. So that means if you learned it in a restaurant or a hotel or other food service setting, you could take this to any job that you go to. So many people, as we talked about, start out in restaurants and then go into all kinds of other careers, but you'll hear them say, what I learned while I was working at that restaurant or hotel, I've taken with me wherever. So these are things like the first area is personal responsibility, right? Just showing up, being prepared to work, be addressed, knowing the rules, being part of the team. They like to know that, hey, if Laurie's on the schedule, she's going to be there that day and she's going to be ready to go. And when you're part of a restaurant and a team, you need to be able to rely on other people to show up and be ready to work. So that personal responsibility is really important. Also, communication. That's with your coworkers, that's with your managers and supervisors, and that's with your customers. Being able to talk to people and to listen to people and to be aware of both your verbal and nonverbal communication. You'll hear so many times people say, well, I didn't say anything, but they were sitting there with that kind of like stink face or crossed arms, and so people thought they didn't want to be there. So really understanding all of the communication and knowing it's not just important to show a great face to your customers, but also to your coworkers, because that's who you interact with every day. And the third area is attitude, or I like to say positive attitude. And that is really coming in ready to go every day. Let's do this thing. And something we talk about a lot, and I love this term, is situational agility. Being able to kind of have a good attitude every day. Some days will be busy, some days are less busy. Some days things go well, some days things don't go as well. Being able to just come in every day ready to do it, and also able, and this is a tough one for all of us, to take feedback when you do and have a great day, and maybe when you don't have as great a day and get ways to improve. So that attitude is really important.
It's like reading the room and reading the table that you're serving. It's being able to have that situational awareness absolutely can help you in any career you go to.
Exactly. And just being able to handle, the ups and downs at any job. Any job you're in, there's going to be days when it's like, woo, everything's going great, and there's going to be days where you don't get that sale or whatever, and you're just being able to work through that as well. And then another big one we heard from employers is having learning. It says learning, I think of like learning mentality, that you're ready to learn new jobs and new assignments and gain skills. And that's really the way that you can move up. And employers want someone who's ready to come in and learn how to work the register, learn how to work the grill, learn how to, if you're in a restaurant, learn how to do the front desk, learn how to do, behind the desk, whatever needs to be done. And if you want to move up and increase your job, you've got to learn new skills. So people that are coming in and excited to learn new things and also get the credentials that show that you have learned that thing, whether it's your serve safe or your customer service goal, whatever it is that shows that you have learned a new thing. And one that's probably not a big surprise, customer service, empathy, really being able to understand and sort of anticipate what people are going to need. Oh, if you see a large family, they're probably going to want a large table, and they might also need a booster seat. Another piece of customer service that people don't think about, though, is also internal customer service, helping out your coworkers, helping out the manager, helping out the kitchen, being able to recognize how you build those relationships. And this one I like to think about is, people don't think about internal customer service, but if you're at a restaurant and you don't have that, you end up by yourself at a table singing happy birthday because none of your coworkers come over to help you sing happy birthday. And maybe for a few people that's a great experience, but for most of us, singing happy birthday all by ourselves is a little bit nerve-wracking. It's a hard tune to carry. And so you want people to help you carry that tune and carry the workload. And then the last area is the only one that is more specific to restaurants and hotels, and that's called industry-specific skills. And that really is knowing what the different front and back of the house positions are, knowing what they do, understanding about food safety and cleanliness. And, of course, during this time of COVID, that is especially important. And then the last is what we call point of sale, and that's really interacting with customers and knowing how to take orders and how to upsell and how to understand what people are asking for, and maybe if they're not sure, give them some ideas, and that's really important as well. And so those 6 areas, employers really feel like if someone arrives with that, we can do the last bit of our restaurant or hotel-specific procedures. But we want people coming day one, ready to work, ready to talk to people, great attitude, ready to learn stuff, ready to help our customers, internal and external, and then knowing the basics about what everybody does at the restaurant. This works for all different populations.
Absolutely.
So we have, we talked about with Restaurant Ready, it was originally developed actually for younger people, age like 16 to 24, what we'd say entering the workplace. But once this was developed, people were like, well, we want to use this with all of our employees of every age because everybody needs it. And it's particularly helpful for populations who are maybe re-entering the workplace, like our justice-involved population, or people coming back to the workplace. They could be coming out of the military. They could be maybe someone who was at home as a mom and now coming in. But everybody could use these basic skills.
You read my mind. It's exactly where I wanted to go next with your HOPES program, the hospitality opportunities for people re-entering society. I just love this program.
Oh, thank you. I kind of like it pretty well myself. And we're very excited. So as you mentioned, HOPE, hospitality opportunities for people reentering society. That is a program that is funded by the U.S. Department of Labor, and it is a program, it's a reentry program, and it's to help people who have been justice involved reconnect to their community and reconnect to work and skills, and have the support that they need to be successful in employment. And it's nice because we talked earlier about that community collaboration model. It's really connecting programs that are already existing in state facilities and in jails. We didn't discover, but I found out that almost every, or many state facilities and jails have career tech programs, and a lot of them include culinary programs, but even more, every place has dining services, and often people's first job in a facility is working in dining services. So that means we have all kinds of talented people who have dining service and culinary skills, and they are reentering and looking for work. We've also got, as we mentioned, those community-based organizations who are focused on reentering and helping people get the support that they need, whether it's transportation or a place to live or clothing. And then we've got our state restaurant associations who are looking for new talent, new people to help engage and empower and advance in restaurants and hospitality. So when you bring those 3 things together, really, it turns into, as we mentioned earlier, this beautiful sort of intentional pathway where someone is gaining skills and experience while they're in a facility, and then they're connected to a community-based organization that can identify everything that they need to be successful in the workplace, whether that's skills, whether that's transportation, clothing, equipment like their apron or whatever. And then we've got the State Restaurant Association that connects to industry and employers and says, hey, this is what they're looking for, and here's what we need in the field. And so someone can just smoothly transition and start in a restaurant and then have that support once they're in the job to keep the job, to be sure they can get there and that they have everything they need to be successful.
And it ties back to what you said earlier about
this.
I was just going to say that what ties it back for me is the sense of dignity of having a job that you can be proud of and that you've accomplished and that you've been given the opportunity to have this job and to be supported in this job.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go. One of the case managers put it as, we are restoring the dignity to people that may have been stripped away from them through what occurred in their community or what occurred in other situations, and giving them the opportunities that maybe they never had. I mean, people talk about a second chance. For a lot of people, this is the first chance. And a lot of times I think we think about people who are just as involved as others. But the truth is, 1/3 of our population has been just as involved in one way or another. And pretty much every one of us, if it's not ourselves, we have someone in our family who made a mistake, made a bad choice, was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now they've got these skills, they've paid off whatever debt to society they needed to pay, and they're ready. They're ready to work. And all kinds of studies show there's no detriment to working. It doesn't make people worse off, but instead, in most cases, it makes people better off, not only in having a job, but it lowers recidivism. So it's a wonderful way to give people dignity, to give people opportunity, and to help people move forward and move their families forward and move their communities forward. And what we've heard from restaurants is most of the time when they've had problems with employees, it wasn't these employees. It was people that maybe got hired, just walked in the door and got hired. So most of their problems have not been with the justice-involved population or people that they've given this opportunity. Often people who are justice involved will stay longer because they appreciate the opportunity and they understand, what a great opportunity it is to have a job. I know one of our participants.
And with that, I wish we could. I have to get in one more set of commercials, and then our last segment we'll share a little bit about what we can think about the audience doing, as well as sharing the rest of your story. I'm going to create another cliffhanger, but we'll be right back. Just stay with us as we learn more about how restaurants can be a place of dreams, not only for us going to that restaurant, but creating careers and opportunities in our community. Welcome back to Connections Radio Show. I'm Laurie Fitz, your host, and we've been talking about how restaurants can be reimagined for places to look at for careers and support. So often I think people think of terms of restaurants as just being perhaps a transitional job, but there are career opportunities. And in our last segment, we were talking about their HOPES program, which, and let me say that we are talking with the director of the workforce engagement from the National Restaurant Education Foundation. Welcome, Patricia Gill. We're so glad you've been here to share your insights and your dreams and visions. And I was so excited about the HOPES program. I jumped right in for our last segment. The HOPES program is hospitality opportunities for people re-entering society. And it's really second chance hiring, right? And how you're working with departments of corrections, community-based organizations, and State Restaurant Association to help with helping people re-enter society.
Exactly. And I like to say it's second chance hiring for, first-rate talent. It's just amazing to me that this is a group of people who have so much talent and so many dreams and so much interest, and they just haven't had that opportunity. Right. And I think it's all about opportunities. And I was starting to tell a story about one of our participants. We have a lot of participants who have had great outcomes, but one who was hired, and it turned out this was his first job he'd ever had. He'd always wanted to have a job, never knew how to get one. This was his first job he's ever had. He was hired by one of our restaurant partners, Mod Pizza, actually, and his name's Ernest. He lets me always say his name. He was hired, and like within a month, moved up once, and has now had a second promotion and is looking at a third, working very hard to get one. And to think that this is a person who just was never even hired before, it's just hard to believe. And that's just one example, but we have many, many participants and actually many people across the country, not just in our program, who have great skills and talents. They call it untapped talent, I guess.
It's really
who are ready to go work. And so
it's an opportunity for really driving the economy as well. And it's investing in the community and investing in dreams, investing in dignity, investing in opportunity for the future.
All of those things. That's exactly right. And, I think before the break I said a third. It's over 25% of our population has had some kind of interactive with the justice system, minor or major. So it's not these people way over there, but people that we know, or maybe even our family members who, made a mistake or were in the wrong place, whatever, made a bad choice. They've been involved, but they have skills and talents, and they shouldn't be defined by this one moment in their life, but instead by all they can do. And what's great about restaurants is it doesn't matter what you've done before. It matters about what you show up and what you do that day and what you bring. And so many restaurants and hospitality places are looking for great employees and great talent. And so it's sort of a great combination of people with talent who need work and great workplaces that need people with talent. So it just comes together so well. And so as we start to think about what your listeners can do, it's first of all, when you go to your local restaurant, and we hope you still do because everyone loves to gather and everyone loves good food, and they certainly need you to come in right now. As you said, COVID's been particularly hard on our industry. Yeah, go gather, be with your friends, but also look around and notice the opportunities that are there and the skills and the people working there, and start to think of your local restaurant as not only a place of gathering and good food, but also a place of opportunity and skills and careers and career pathways. And then I think the next thing is about the justice-involved population, really recognizing that those are our people, those are our friends, those are our relatives, those are our family members, and they're people with talent.
And with that, I'm going to encourage them also to go to chooserestaurants.org, bring down the Discover Opportunities, and read some more. I'm going to have you come back. That's the only thing. You're going to have to come back for another hour to share more because you've got such great insights. But we have to go. So I'm so sorry. We'll just book you real soon. And stay with us and learn more about how restaurants are places of dreams.